Hey people, this whole series is dedicated to foot technique on the drums. From the simplest basic movements to playing the double bass drum and even adjusting and maintaining your pedals. Today we're going one step further and I'm going to show you a few special techniques that you can use to play even more efficiently and, with a little practice, much faster. If you like the video, I have just one request. Please throw $1 or $2 into the donation box. In the description you will find 2 links, because remember, for a course like this, you usually pay at least $150. However, I have decided to make it available to you for free here on YouTube, because I assume that you are honest, and if a video helps you, you also help me by making a small donation. It doesn't hurt anyone, but if everyone does it, I can continue like this in the future. If $1 is still too much for you, then at least give the video a like. That actually helps, because YouTube notices that this video is relevant and suggests it to others as well. Thank you so much for your support. Especially with the techniques that I'm going to show you today, it can help a lot to put the snare drum away and also use a mirror. The feet are normally not in our field of vision, so they don't learn quite as quickly because we get less feedback. But now we want to concentrate fully on the foot technique, so we have to see what happens there. Also look at how the knee moves in relation to the foot, because later this is the best and also your only indicator of what the feet are doing. Up to now we have always played in such a way that we generate one stroke from one movement cycle. We wind up and then make a stroke. All the techniques I'm going to show you now use the same principle, that we get multiple hits out of a movement cycle, each in a different way. The first technique is actually very common, the double stroke. As the name suggests, we make one movement but end up with 2 strokes. You probably know that from your hands. There we make a downward movement with the arm, let the stick bounce back and then snap with the fingers to end up with 2 strokes. While one arm plays, the other one winds up, so that in the end we have continuous hits and can also play very quickly because of this alternation. So it's a kind of division of labor in 2 senses. First, between the muscles. The first hit comes from the arm, the second from the finger muscles. If we play faster, it then merges into one fluid motion. And then we also alternate between the 2 sides. One side plays while the other arm moves back up. We now have to adapt this principle a bit for the feet, because it wouldn't help if we pulled on the pedal with our toes, except that it would look very funny. How do we now apply this principle to our feet? There are 3 ways that I'm going to show you now. All 3 use one basic idea. Make a wave like this in the air with your hand. And now let it land on a surface. You hear that it makes 2 sounds in quick succession. And by the way, the same works also the other way around. How do we put that on the pedal now? For the first variation, the slide technique, as the name suggests, we slide over the pedal. Let's practice this very slowly at first. This does not look or sound anything like the end result yet, but we first have to internalize the movement sequence fundamentally. Just let your foot rest lightly on the pedal. Now you pull it back in one quick movement while the toes snap down. You should produce a stroke as you do this. And this now is your final position for the first half. Try that a few times. Make sure you don't lift completely off the pedal and then smack on the foot plate. In the next step, you now simply turn it around. You make a stroke by dropping your knee and sliding your foot forward. Slowly practice this alternation a few times over a few days until you have internalized it. If you play with shoes, by the way, and this movement still causes you problems, it may be that the sole is simply too sticky. I use leather sole shoes whenever I use these and similar techniques, sometimes even just on the right foot. For this I gave one of the pair of my V-Ratum drumming shoes to a shoemaker. Once you have the individual movements down, you can play them back to back and faster so that they merge into a single cycle. But it is very important that you include a rest. A typical mistake is that you practice this continuously. You could do that, but then it's a completely different technique and a different approach, which we will get to later. The double strokes are there to make 2 quick strokes in a row. Feel free to practice this in context, for example, with a groove like this. Or do it with a fill-in, like the typical heavy metal fill that we looked at in the part about the double pedal. So, with the double strokes, you can even fake a double bass drum in some ways. By the way, if you now play faster, the first hit is no longer made solely by sliding back, but it is a fluent movement that you slide into the pedal and get 2 hits out of it. But to practice this very fundamentally, like at the beginning, that you make the first stroke very consciously and actively by pulling back and pressing down the toes, has helped me a lot to internalize the movement and also ensures that the first note is not too soft, because the second will always be louder, as here all the power comes from the whole leg. Also, make sure that your knee only moves up and down once. If you just look at your knee, it should look like you're just making one single stroke. By the way, you can also use this technique to play very fast groups of 4 notes if you have a double pedal, simply by interweaving the strokes. Incidentally, the German drummer Jost Nickel is someone who has mastered this technique perfectly and uses it a lot. Another German drummer, Annika Nilles, on the other hand, uses the second variant that I would like to show you now, which is very similar, except that it doesn't slide over the pedal, but falls into it from above. The idea is the same. With one movement, you make 2 strokes, but this time it's more of a vertical motion. So you're doing more of an ankle stroke first, and then drop your leg, which creates the second stroke. So it's just a different variation of the same idea. Try both for a few days and see what suits you better. However, the third variant differs significantly. Again, you can imagine it like this wave movement, but the other way around, so you're pulling. And now if you drop it, you again have 2 strokes. So you drop your leg first, let the beta bounce back, and then do an ankle stroke. This technique has several advantages. On the one hand, it is better suited to play loud, and since you lift your leg again with the second stroke from the calf muscle, you are quickly in the starting position again. So it's easy to play pretty fast and steady double strokes that way. And that's why it's used by a lot of extreme metal drummers.
That's how I start doing it, and I keep doing it for as fast as I can, you know?
Yeah.
And that brings us to the next technique, the heel-toe movement. Because you can not only play it as double strokes, but also as a continuous movement, as I already mentioned. The name, by the way, is a bit misleading because we don't play with the heel or with the toes here, but actually only with the ball of our feet. The foot now rocks up and down. It is the same principle as the up and down stroke with our hands. We play a stroke, and when pulling up our arm, the tip of the stick goes down and makes a second stroke. It's the same with the feet. You drop the leg, and then you make a stroke out of your calf muscle, which simultaneously brings your leg back up. If you play this faster, these partial movements merge into one fluent motion again, and the foot is moving constantly. Incidentally, this works better with a higher spring tension and is used a lot by extreme metal drummers again, who want to play very high tempos and therefore resort to such techniques. If you play it on a double pedal, you weave these movements into each other. That is, you play down, down, up, up, down, down, up, up, for example. If you want to dive deeper into these kinds of techniques, because maybe you are into extreme metal drumming and want to achieve high speeds, you should check out the corresponding videos that go into more depth. I just want to give you a quick overview here. Incidentally, some drummers combine this principle with a back and forth movement, such as Jojo Mayer. It's actually very efficient, because when you play it with your hands again and try to achieve a high tempo, you will see that almost automatically you go into a back and forth motion. It's simply the most functional way. But it also requires, again, that you slide over the pedal. And again, this takes some getting used to and some practice, but can be a great way to play efficiently and very fast. The same applies to the Moeller-Technique, which again you may know from the hands. Here we get 3, 4 or even more strokes from one downward movement of the arm by letting the stick rebound in a controlled manner and then making an upstroke. On the pedal, we're going to play a downstroke from the leg, then use the beater's momentum to do a second one, moving with the foot plate and putting a little bit of energy in from the ankle. And then we make a third stroke by pulling our foot back into the starting position, kind of like in the slide technique. You can practice this well by playing a shuffle with a double stroke technique from the beginning, and then use the beater's momentum to make a third stroke in the gap with a small contraction of your calf muscle. This allows you to play continuous strokes with accents, a stylistic device that's used far too rarely on the bass drum, but can be a great effect. I like to use it sometimes when I play such rhythms. I start with the upstroke, like in the slide technique, with an additional hit from the ankle at the end. And the last special technique I want to show you now is the Swivel-Technique. This is a way to get a fairly high tempo on consecutive strokes. You can see it from time to time, again with extreme metal drummers. To do this, place the ball of your foot relatively far back on the pedal and then alternately tap the floor to the right and the left with your heel. This creates strokes almost automatically. Of course, if you play faster now, you won't touch the ground anymore. Practice this with each foot individually and slowly at first to get used to the movement. If you want to play single strokes with it, the question of course arises in which direction you start. There is no right or wrong, just choose a variant that suits you. Your body shows you this to some extent on its own because sometimes the foot makes this movement intuitively anyway. So follow what feels comfortable to you and then cultivate it. So make sure you practice this variation and play it precisely in the rhythm. Speaking of pleasant, one thing is very important here. This movement may look harmless, but it puts quite a bit of shearing force on your knee menisci. So don't go to the end position, don't work with too much momentum, and give your body time to get used to this new strain. So don't practice this for an hour, but first for a few minutes a day, and never when you're in pain. Always remember, we want to practice in such a way that we can still play without pain in 10 years. So much for the most important special techniques. I know there are others with fancy names, but none of them reinvent anything. They all use the same principle, just with different variations. Of course, at high speeds, these small details are very important and make the difference between playing at 220 and 230 BPM. If that is your goal, feel free to dig deeper into these principles, modify them, and find out what works for you. What is the most relaxed way for you to get to your desired result with your pedal? This is your path. I hope I was able to help you on it with this brief introduction. Incidentally, I didn't invent anything here either. I just built on and processed what I've learned from my teachers and other drummers, as well as from books and videos, prepared for you with a few tips from my own experience. Editing that for you was, of course, a lot of work. So if this video has helped you even a little bit, then please be so honest and give something back by making a small donation, so I don't have to put these videos behind a paywall in the future. Thanks for your support. In the next video, we look at what you can do if you have problems with your balance when playing the drums, especially with a double bass drum, and how you can actually train your posture in a targeted manner. See you there. Until then, take care and bye-bye.